Hi guys, this is the second opinion piece that I promised you. This one is called The Smear Campaign. What really happened? Was it created or organic? If you didn't see the first one, I'll link it in comments. It's called Box Cake Blake. These two are topics I've been thinking about since I got involved with covering this case. Since I always get stuck on the whys about things, trying to sort out what human behavior or thinking led to a situation, especially one this messy. Box Cake Blake were just my musings on what I think led to her taking over the movie. And this one, was there even really a smear campaign? Or was there a whole new group of people, not her followers, not her fans, fans of the book, a new generation, a lot of possibilities that led to this outcome. After this, we'll go back to our legal documents like usual. I'm Cassidy O'Connell, and this is The Smear Campaign. What really happened? Welcome. Before we get started, I want to say that yesterday's video, something happened before the ending was finished. This was the Box Cake Blake video. What got missed was the reason for all of the explanations about what I used to do in China and the things that I had created was to compare it to what happened to Justin. I can't imagine if after all of those years and all of that hard work and all of the things that had come from my brain to become a reality, if someone had come along and stolen those from me and tried to claim them as their own, I cannot even imagine how that would feel. I can't even think of a word that would describe how that would feel. I mean, devastating isn't enough. Violated isn't enough. Not just for Justin, but for everyone, for the script writers, for anyone involved in the actual creation of that movie, for their contribution. And then to have this person just come in and trample all over it and think that they knew better so that they could have authorship, so that they could go off and tell the world all of the contributions they made to this movie when they came in at the very end when it had already been prepared for her. It's cruel. It's so inconsiderate. It's so egotistical. I mean, the hubris of a person like that, to stand on the heads of the people who actually created this movie and then walk away with all of the credit. Like I said, there isn't a word to describe what that is. And I feel so sorry for all of these people, the assistant directors who were fired. The only one I don't feel sorry for is Colleen, because she welcomed Blake with open arms and allowed this to happen. But in the end, she ends up making her own production company. So whatever Blake was barking up her tree for, that didn't materialize, did it? But anyway, that was the point of sharing all my experiences. And I don't know if you all noticed that the ending just got cut off. I didn't even have my traditional stay well and stay tuned. So anyway, that's the appropriate conclusion to that video. I can't tell you how much it bothers me that Blake's main focus in this whole lawsuit is this alleged campaign and not the harassment. It's one of the main reasons I stopped believing her. The first reason being that some of the things that she said turned out to be easily disproven. But the other one was this point. Why would you be more upset about what people said about you than being harassed? And then it got me really upset about what her claims are doing to the whole Believe Women movement that Me Too did a lot to help. That was one of the first things I said. One of my very first posts about this mess, before I even started diving into the documents. I said, how is this going to affect women in the future who legitimately experienced harassment and assault because now they won't be believed? It took decades of fighting for women to finally be believed. And every woman that's caught lying about it, or exaggerating it, or using it for their benefit, every time this happens, it hurts the real victims. I mean, just the logic of it. Just use your logic for a moment. What woman will experience this type of harassment she claims she experienced, says she was traumatized by it, is a powerful woman, but doesn't do anything about it? What woman's husband, who is wildly powerful, will see and believe his wife has been through this and not do anything about it except scream at the man, bring him to your home, intimidate him, and hand him a little document and say, sign this? These people who are called a power couple, that's what they do? I've seen men in restaurants when they saw a guy staring at their girl, got into a literal fist fight. Broken dishes, everything. Terrifying. But Ryan said, come to my house, sign this paper. Really? And then from the moment that document was given, they take control. But what do we see her doing? We've seen footage that people who were out when it was being filmed, they just pulled out their phone and like, oh, a movie's being filmed. Let me get this. We see her grabbing on Justin. We see her arguing with him. We find out that she was given a body double so that she didn't even have to do the simulated sex scenes. And she said, no, it's okay. I'll do it. She sits for days in an editing bay with him until she has enough of this movie to put together her own cut. And once that box cake mix is complete, she makes her big move. Now all of a sudden, she can't be anywhere near him. She can't even stand to see his face on the marketing. He can't be at the premiere. But all the while he was putting that box cake mix together, she could tolerate anything. What happens next? She wrecks her own reputation. But then when she wrecks her own reputation, everything changes. All this time, nothing's been done. Nothing's been mentioned. She has no complaints. She said nothing more happened after the 17 points. She never mentions the S harassment again. But let's talk about that. How did her reputation get wrecked? Up until that point, the people on her Instagram were her fans. Her fans, Ryan's fans, Taylor's fans. Their posts about teasing each other often showed up in news articles. They were laughed about. They were talked about. They had a faithful following of die-hard fans. So what went wrong? I've talked about this before, but I'm going to repeat this part because today we're going to add to it. What I've said before is that a whole new batch of people came along with this book. These weren't Blake and Ryan fans. These were fans of the actual book. As news of the book becoming a movie gets released, the book actually ends up on the bestsellers list yet again. It makes it to TikTok, something called Book Talk. It has over 1 billion hashtags there. It's huge. Colleen Hoover is a favorite in what's called the new adult genre. Her books are about characters in their late teens and early 20s. This is her audience. Now, as we know, the character Lily was supposed to be in her early 20s. We're talking about Gen Z. Blake is a millennial. Ryan is Gen X. Gen Z is a whole new kind of animal to this world. They didn't grow up with Gossip Girl. They didn't grow up watching TV with its reruns. They didn't grow up with box sets of DVDs. They're actually referred to as digital natives because they're the first generation that was actually born into the digital world that we live in now. They didn't have to adapt to these advances from PC to laptop, laptop to tablet, tablet to phone. These things existed when they were born. They stream everything. They spend more time on social media than anything else. They listen to podcasts. They stream their music. They watch short videos like TikTok and Reels, YouTube Shorts. They fast forward things that are too long. Or they're watching more than one screen at a time. They game. They do things like this. They're not even watching current TV dramas, let alone old, outdated ones of another generation that probably seems so foreign and so dull to them. They have a whole different list of celebrities that they're familiar with. And unlike the generations before them, they don't have that full-blown famous people do no wrong attitude that generations before them had. They champion authenticity and social justice. They have so many avenues to give their voices to. When it comes to things that they feel need corrected, they are right there ready to speak out about it. And they have a million ways to do so. And this is all according to research. All of these articles. That old idea of Tinseltown that hung on through generation after generation, where you just adore celebrities, that's gone. They expect responsible conduct. They want to be told the truth. They expect the people they look up to be trustworthy. And again, if they see something they don't like, they make noise. If you just do a little research about this, you'll see article after article, the same things. Social responsibility, authenticity, values, credibility, sense of community, trust. These are the things that they value. These are the things they look for in role models. And that's a significant difference. Role model, not idol. And they have a whole new resource for celebrities. It doesn't have to be movie stars anymore. The people that they recognize the quickest are influencers. Now there's something called micro-influencers. They recognize famous people from TikTok, from YouTube, from Instagram, people that you're never going to see in a theater or on TV. And yet their faces are easily recognized by these digital natives. Another thing they like about it is the personal content. They can communicate with these people, and they're admired because of their views of life, not because they were in a movie. Another thing about Gen Z is they have a distinct set of habits and viewpoints. What do we see again? Authenticity. And here's a new one, diversity. They are trying to carve out their own path. They're redefining societal norms. They want change. They embrace change. When they see things like racism, fakeness, injustice, dishonesty, they call it out. They care so much more than previous generations about mental health concerns. Social justice, again, they're very empathetic. We have to keep this in mind because it's very important for what happened here. This group of digital natives had posted over 1 billion hashtags about this book. This book that dealt with the heavy social issue, exactly what they're into. It's not just a social issue, but the mental health issues that come with DV, the injustice, the poor treatment of women by men. Do you see how so many of the topics of this book are very important to Gen Z? These things are in the forefront of their minds as a whole, things that they want to see changed. And here they were waiting for this beloved book that had all the things they're interested in to come to life in a movie. What did they get? First of all, an aged-up cast. They don't quite relate to this, so that was an adjustment. But they probably would have been okay with that, since there was also the young Lily and the young Atlas playing their part. But keep in mind, the people interested in this movie weren't Blake's usual following. These are younger people with all of those traits we just discussed. And they see this woman who's closer to their parents' age than their age. And she's putting out these weird marketing ads. She's promoting herself. She's promoting her products. She's completely avoiding the social issues that attracted them to this story in the first place. And then you have a real recipe for disaster. As we've seen, these are not millennials who stay hopelessly in love with stars. These are Gen Z. These are people looking for authenticity, honesty, credibility, social responsibility, and they're loud about it. Blake had never seen anything like this because her fans are older. They were Ryan's generation. They were her generation. They were people that grew up liking them. And now this whole new situation, she's stunned by it. But it was legitimate criticism. And knowing now what's in this research, we see why. It wasn't a smear campaign. She was being held accountable when she's used to being adored, and she couldn't wrap her inflated ego around it. In her mind, there just had to be something else behind it. The other side of this smear campaign that Blake and her supporters haven't taken into consideration is that this criticism was not helpful to Justin. It wasn't helpful to Wayfair. It wasn't helpful to the movie. One thing that we saw about Justin was that he gave in to Blake over and over for the sake of the movie. He wanted this movie to succeed. In the very end, when he had already been completely cut off, when he had no idea what the final cut was even going to look like, you can read in his messages with the editors and the producers, and you can almost hear the tears in his voice as he held on to one thought that got him through. He told them that he had been able to get enough of the story told, that he'd been able to ensure that enough good footage had been filmed that the movie would somehow still be great and still get the important message out that he had always wanted from the beginning. He wanted it so bad, in fact, that that's how Blake had been able to steamroll him. He could have tanked the whole project, but he cared about it enough to let himself be mistreated. Keeping that in mind, why, oh why, after enduring all of that, would he turn around and put out a smear campaign that had the potential not to destroy Blake, but to destroy the movie before it even had a chance? Does that make sense? If he wanted to destroy Blake, but not the movie, wouldn't this so-called smear campaign have looked very, very different than things that would shine a negative light on the movie? And when they saw Blake's marketing doing poorly, did they sit back and celebrate, oh yay, Blake and Ryan are making fools of themselves, awesome? No, they sent out an email saying, hey, this isn't working, please adjust. Why? To help Blake and Ryan? No, to save the movie. Drawing criticism just before a movie comes out is a terrible move to make. And think about what the criticism of Blake was. It was all related to the movie, her wardrobe, her marketing. Why would that have come from the men who wanted this movie to succeed more than anyone? It's not logical in the least bit. This is not the smear campaign that Justin would have come up with. What else was happening? Justin's PR agent made a deal with Blake's agent to not talk about any of this to the press. Justin didn't want any negative talk at all because he didn't want it to affect the movie. But now we know that it was Leslie Sloan who went straight to the Daily Mail planting gossip. Blake's people, not Justin's. We have the messages of when Daily Mail talked to Leslie Sloan, and we have the messages of when Daily Mail talked to Jennifer Abel. Leslie Sloan spilled her guts. Jennifer Abel denied everything, immediately contacted Leslie. We have a problem. Who was interested in putting bad stuff out there? Honestly, Blake was the one leaving her trail of breadcrumbs that people started picking up on, not Justin. Justin continued speaking highly of Blake in interviews, while Blake wouldn't say his name, and instructed the cast who used to love Justin for them not to say his name and call him the director. All of these things are what created the talk, and they all came from Blake, not Justin. Justin was doing everything in his power to save the movie. It makes no sense that he would stage a smear campaign at that time. And if he were going to, wouldn't he want the focus of it to be something far removed from the movie itself? Not only to not affect the movie, but so that it wouldn't look like it came from him. Doesn't make sense. And Blake and Ryan and their followers used zero logic when trying to piece together why she was getting criticism. And then they blew the whole situation up beyond repair. But what had actually happened? Gen Z, the digital natives, the social justice warriors, saw something they didn't like, and they made noise about it. Now, as time passed, honestly, it wasn't even that big of a deal. It was dying down. It would have continued to die down. The movie did well. And then what happened? A scorned Stephanie Jones was mad. She was mad that Jennifer Abel left. She was mad that she got fired by Justin in Wayfair. So what did she do? She didn't care about the movie. She didn't care about Justin. She was mad at him. She didn't even care about Blake. She had taken part in preparing to protect Justin if Blake did do something, which is, by the way, all they were doing. She gets Abel's phone, and she takes these messages straight to Blake and ignites a situation that would take a little smolder that was losing heat and blow it up. These messages that she was an actual part of were a crisis plan to implement if things got bad. She knew that. She didn't care. She was mad. She was scorned. She was vengeful. She knew exactly how Blake, the woman that she had helped plan to protect her client from, would react to seeing these cherry-picked messages. And it was exactly what she wanted but couldn't do herself. She lit the dynamite that sent Blake into a frenzy. Blake was more concerned with the blows to her ego than any perceived harassment. She declared war, and the New York Times article was born. She put more time and effort into that newspaper article than any consideration she'd given to the thing that should have been the most important if it had really happened. The alleged harassment. As a woman, I know what would be more important to me. This alleged harassment, she was willing to just let it go? Just have her husband scream at him and all was well? Does that make sense? I mean, when we heard about this, we were outraged for her. We felt sorry for her. We lit our torches and gathered our pitchforks, and we were ready to rally against yet another man who had abused another one of us. But when we noticed that we cared more about the harassment than she did, that she had never focused on reporting that's just in the lawsuit because it has to be, her actual motive is finding someone to blame for the criticism that she rightfully earned. The criticism that this group of people, Gen Z, who didn't know her, didn't come to the movie to see her, they came to see their book come to life and saw this woman who didn't look like their character, didn't act like their character, because guess what? She didn't even bother to read the book. There were leaks of video, not from Justin, but like I said earlier, from locals who saw the filming, recorded it on their phones, and posted it where? Where Gen Z hangs out a good portion of the day. TikTok, Reels, YouTube. It got picked up by tabloids, celebrity gossip channels, you name it. They see her not taking direction, arguing with her director, dressing like a bag lady. The tension is palpable in those videos. No one looks happy. And people started talking, but her lack of self-awareness stopped her from being able to see that that's what happened. And so when Stephanie Jones came along, Blake was thrilled to say, it's not me. It's Justin's fault. It's a smear campaign. And it's been obvious since the New York Times article that this has been her priority. And for all actual victims of S harassment or S abuse, that didn't make sense in our heads. That didn't line up with our experiences, and it set off our spidey senses. Then the lawsuits came out, and each document that we read revealed more and more of her motives and what really happened. Her description of events did not hold up to the evidence that started being revealed. And those of us that couldn't fathom the lack of attention to the claims that should have been the most important, those of us with logical reasoning ability and discernment started to see through it. What else? These people who had actually been part of the organic criticism knew why they themselves had posted their criticism in the first place. They knew that they weren't a part of any smear campaign. They knew what was real. And then what happened? What had started as merely irritation and disappointment became full-fledged outrage. And they did exactly what their generation does. They committed to exposing this injustice. And the more that got uncovered, the deeper they dug. More and more of them made their own posts and videos. And just like word of the book that had spread to over 1 billion hashtags, news of this spread. My guess is that her most loyal fans are among the millennials who grew up with her on their TV and became attached to her. But I think even among them, those who aren't so attracted to famous people or who have really good deduction skills, they joined in with Gen Z. Then we have the more no-nonsense generation, Gen X. Of course they saw through it. And together, these are the ones that locked down some of the other forms of social media. Now, mainstream media, a lot of which is produced by people from Blake's and Ryan's generations, but also people who tend to play favorites with powerful people because these people provide them with stories and interviews, or because Blake and Ryan may have ties to them or their executives. They've mostly been writing articles favoring Blake and Ryan. But that only makes seekers of truth and justice more angry, and that's produced more and more content on social media. Blake was upset about that little bit of criticism she got in the beginning. Now she's got microscopes and telescopes focused on every aspect of her life. They're digging out every public word she's ever uttered. And unfortunately for her, she's not been a very nice person publicly through the years. She's told opposing stories that showed us that she's not very honest a lot of the time. Unfortunately for Ryan, things he's been saying that no one really paid attention to because people viewed him as a baby face, kind of nerdy, kind of feminine, non-threatening funny guy. These things are now being blasted, and everyone's listening now. Every word of his strange storytelling throughout his whole career is being dissected and studied and distributed, and it's appalling. How will all of this end up? No one knows at this point, but every time I look on Social Blade at their accounts, I see huge amounts of followers fleeing from them, and not just them, their close friends. I just showed this in my last episode. Taylor, Hugh Jackman, Sean Levy, even Colleen Taylor. People are fleeing. I see so many reels every time I click on Instagram exposing something new every day. The same thing on YouTube. So what caused the smear campaign? I think it's pretty clear to see. You just have to look. You just have to study information. You just have to be logical and reasonable. The answers are there. You don't even need a subpoena for it. And now I've got to get back to work. There are so many filings I got to catch up with. In this case, in the Murdaugh case, in the Mallory Beach's family's conspiracy case. A lot of movement in these things that I'm so excited to tell you about. So I've got a busy weekend because I want to get these out to you as quickly as I can. Till then, this is Cassie O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.